We just combined Wan2.5, the AI model many are calling the Veo3 killer, with Seedream, the unrestricted image model from the team behind TikTok, to create an automation that makes videos with virtually zero restrictions.
Drink Coke, or we'll kill you.
You want to know how I got these scars? From eating too many Lays.
Because in case you missed it, for months now, Google's Veo3 has been the world's only video model that can also generate dialogue and audio. At least until just days ago when Alibaba released Wan2.5, which not only can generate audio as well, but also with virtually zero restrictions and no censorship. And so in this video, not only will we show how to use Wan2.5 in n8n to automate its use, but we also integrate it with Seedream to place any product of your choice into the scene with any character that you want. And remember, the AI videos that you see here are the worst that they'll ever be, because as these newer and better AI models continue to develop, and with demand for AI agents and automation climbing fast, then skilling up on how to build these AI systems, which are all no code anyway, so anyone can pick them up, is certain to pay off for you in a big way. Let's get started. If you're new here, my name is Jay. I spent a decade in creative and marketing work and half a decade leading data teams, and now founded my AI agency and also RoboNuggets, our education arm, where we have several hundred members now, all AI builders across the globe. And here our mission is to make creating with AI easy to learn regardless what your background is. We do this with a wealth of AI lessons that most people join for, but most members stay because of the community that we have built. So as mentioned in the intro, this week Alibaba released Wan2.5, which pretty much is the first true challenger to Veo3 because of its capability to do audio along with the video, which for a time only Veo3 was able to do. And if you just look at the Wan2.5 community page, you can already see how people are testing out its capabilities and also how it has virtually zero restrictions, unlike Veo3. But I think the real power behind this model is basically two things. One is if you combine it with an image model like Seedream that can put your product into the scene and then use that as a driving image of the video, then you can use Wan2.5 to its fullest potential to make product videos that you can use for marketing and creative use cases. And then secondly, if you've used Veo3 a handful of times, then you may be already familiar with Google's restrictive content policy, where Google seems to reject prompts even when the character you're trying to pass is AI generated, which makes sense for them because the tech is pretty new and they're trying to limit it still. But if you have a valid use case, then this can understandably be frustrating for you as a user. And so this is where Wan2.5 excels as well. So what we're going to do in this video is show you 7 use cases of how you can utilize this powerful combination of Wan2.5 and Seedream by running this workflow that we've set up that automates those two models. And also just to test it out and see how many Veo3 rejects, we also have a branch here for Veo3 that will show how many of these use cases will be restricted by Google, and also to see if we can compare the quality of Veo with Wan2.5. And by the way, if you're completely new, this whole system, we built it in this tool called n8n, which is a no-code automation tool similar to Make.com or Zapier, but you can see how popular it's gotten because of the way it integrates these AI systems. And the great thing about n8n is if you're a bit more advanced and need a shortcut, if you're part of the RoboNuggets community, you can just download this template, import that file into n8n, and that will load this system for you automatically. But if you're a beginner, don't worry because I'll be going through this node by node so that you can understand the principles of how it was built. But all right, so we have our 7 use cases here. What I'll do is I'll just run this automation to get those 7 use cases. And once that is done, we can now go through those use cases together. And also just from here, you can already see which ones were rejected by Google. So 3 out of the 7, so almost half, actually got restricted. So we'll view those in a bit. And here we'll start with our first use case, which is generating UGCs or user-generated content with your own AI actor. So the way the automation works is that we feed it a reference image. So you can see here, I just have the product we want to promote here, plus the actor whom we want to talk about that product. And then we ask Seedream, which is an image model, to create our starting frame for our video, which we then try to pass along into Wan2.5 to create the video as well as the dialogue, as well as to Veo3. And this is actually an example that I gave in a previous video. And back then, Veo seemed to work for this exact AI actor. But it seems that now, at least for this one, Google seems to be rejecting it. But as you'll see later, Wan2.5 was actually able to do this video without any issues. So before we show the output of this, I'll just go quickly into the workflow to show you how it all works. So how this automation works is very simple. Like always, we have an input section here at the beginning. Then we have these nodes to call on the models, which would generate the images and the videos for us. Then in our output, we just upload them to the file storage of our choice. In this case, we used box.com because that's quite easy to set up. And if we start with the input section, we just do a simple Google Sheet node in here. where if I open that, you'll see n8n's common design of working here, where here at the left region, you see all of the data that is coming from previous nodes. And then here at the middle is your configuration section for the node that you are setting up. And here at the right shows the output of that node that is then passed along to the succeeding nodes. And for this Google Sheet node, you can see that it is connected to this document, which was the Google Sheet that we were viewing earlier. And if we expand that, you can see that we just have a column here for the title, just for our reference. We have here the written image and video prompts. So this is the prompt being fed into Seedream. And this video prompt is the one that is being fed to Wan2.5 and Veo3. We also have a field here for the aspect ratio, which can either be 9:16 or 16:9. And then finally, we have this image reference column, which if we open one of those URLs, that just leads to our reference image that we are feeding into the system. And if you're setting up a system like this yourself, I suggest for you to check out this service called Cloudinary, which if you go to cloudinary.com, they're actually one of the most useful tools for AI automators because they have a fairly generous free plan. And if you go to your assets section, you can upload your reference images here. And if you do a right click and click copy URL, you'll be able to copy that image URL that you can use in your Google Sheets. And so back to our n8n workflow, when this ran, we just grabbed one of the use cases here and loaded all of that information into n8n, which is an output of that. We just load our image prompts, video prompts, and image references in here, similar to what we had in that Google document, which we now pass into this Seedream node to create the image. And if we open this node, you can see its output is this PNG image, which if you preview that, you'll basically get your starting frame before you move to the video animation step. But this node is actually a sub workflow. So if I click on this view sub execution icon, that will take us to the sub workflow where we pass our prompts and image reference into Seedream to create that image automatically. And how this works is very simple because when this automation ran, it just passed our image prompt and image reference into this node, which if I open this is basically an HTTP request node. And this request node is actually one of the most popular nodes in n8n because it's the main way by which we can call on third-party tools from within this platform. So you can see we are posting a request to this URL, which is basically called key.ai. And in case you're new, key.ai is an AI model aggregator. So they're functioning sort of like an app store to let you access AI models for your automations. And you can see other image API. They have several here. Seedream is included. And if you click on that, you can actually use Seedream here manually by putting in your prompt here, plus also uploading your image URL in here. So we usually go to this playground in order to test prompts first. But if you're ready to use it in an automation, you can go to this API tab and just read through this documentation, which we've already done here. And so if we go back to n8n, KeyAI's documentation basically tells us that we need to send our request to this URL, and we need to format our request in this JSON or JavaScript object notation structure. So if I expand this is how the request is structured. And these green texts, they are dynamic values, where we are basically saying that we are going to use this model called Seedream. We are using our image prompt coming from that Google Sheet, which for this specific run translated to this one. We are sending our image reference, also coming from Google Sheet. You remember this cloudinary.com URL in there, and also our aspect ratio or image size, which this slightly longer piece of text that just formats your selection in the Google Sheet earlier to be this format, which KeyAI accepts. And then we have the image resolution here, which we've set to 4K to have the highest resolution for Seedream. And so when this node ran, you can see it said that the request has been a success. And so what's happening behind the scenes is that KeyAI has now called its Seedream model in order to create that image for us. We have a wait node here, which if I open this, we've set that to 60 seconds just to wait for the image to generate. And after that time, we just have this get image node, which if we open this node, we're simply asking KeyAI to send us our video back. And you can see here, the first time it ran, KeyAI actually told us that the image is still waiting. And so that's the reason we have a switch node in here, because if we open this, what this basically does is set up some routing rules for us, where if KeyAI says that the state of that generation or task is still waiting or generating, we just map this automation to the in progress branch. But if that state is already equal to success, then we just map it to the success branch. And then at the very bottom here, we just have a fallback output. If in case none of those cases are true, then we just map it to this fallback output, which would be our error case. So basically what happened here is that for the first time it ran, it just mapped back to in progress and we waited a bit. That's why this node ran 2 times, as you can see. And then on the second run, if we open this again, you'll see that for this run second of 2, it now resulted to success. And so when this switch node ran, it now mapped to this return node, which if we open this, it now gave us that PNG file back. And in n8n, the way sub-workflows work is that the output of the last node here is returned back to the main workflow. And just before we leave on this topic, the main reason why sub-workflows are quite useful in automations is because once you set this up, you can just copy them and paste them into any new build that you are creating, and you'll be able to use them pretty easily. So with that image, we now pass that into Wan2.5 and also Veo3 in order to create the videos. And if we open this and again view our sub-workflow, you'll find a sub-workflow for Wan2.5, which basically takes that image and animates it to become a 10-second video. And also you can see that the structure by which we set up this sub-workflow is very similar to what we had in Seedream. So if we open this first HTTP request node, you'll find the pattern to be the same where we are posting a request, we are sending it to key.ai. But if we scroll down and look at the message of what we are requesting, you'll see that this time, if we zoom in, we are now using the Wan2.5 video model, but we are still passing along the prompt as well as the image URL that came from Seedream in this case, because that now becomes the starting frame for this video. We also have a couple of values here, which is just as per KEI's documentation. So we have the duration in seconds as well as the resolution. And then this enable prompt expansion is just an option in Wan2.5, where if you pass a simple prompt, they will actually expand that in order to achieve the best quality output. So that's something that you can test for yourself. But once that request has been passed, we just have a wait node here once again to wait until that video has been generated. And then once sufficient time has passed, we call on this get video node in order to check with KEI if our video is now available. And you can see here in the final run of this node that it gave us this MP4 file, which is the video that Wan2.5 generated. And so same as before, we just have a switch node here in order to handle cases where the video is still in progress. But once it is fully done, we map it to this return node to send back that MP4 file back to the main workflow. And then these succeeding nodes are just the output section in order to properly capture that. Firstly, in our Google Sheets. So if I open this, you'll see it's just mapped to our Google Sheet in this case. And then what it is doing is just updating the production status as done and then adding the video to the one output column here. And then if you prefer, you can actually extend this so that it auto uploads to the file storage option of your choice. And so we just have this HTTP request node, which we've set to get so that we can get that video coming from this MP4 file that Wan2.5 has given us as a final output. What that will do is just load that file data into n8n because that is what is needed to upload it into Box, which if we open this, we just have that set to upload where we're telling n8n to upload this file called data into this Box folder. And if in case you're setting this up yourself, this folder ID, you can just find it at the top of the URL here. And if you look at the Veo3 branch, it is pretty much the same. But if you go to the sub-workflow for Veo3, you can see that the video result here is the rejection letter by Google's content policy. And if you look at the sub-execution in this case, you'll see that it's the same format once again. The only difference is this HTTP request node. If we open that, that's now linked to this URL that calls on the Veo model. And if you look at the get video step, you'll find that this node, when it finished running, this was the one that gave us an error message, which because that's an error, this switch node was now able to handle it to route it to this error branch, which if we open this, that just gets the error message coming from KEI and loads it here so that it passes it back to the main workflow. And that error message is what we pass to this Google Sheet node that is linked to this column. So that is how this automation works and how we are combining this image model for Seedream with the top video models available right now. And so if we go back to our first use case, we can now preview this UGC video that Wan2.5 created for us.
I saw these on TikTok and I have to say, it's the best sparkling wine in London and they have 0 alcohol. And you know what? It's seriously really good.
So that's actually really good. And this part where she shows the product close to the camera is quite unique. And you can also see how her hand at the back is being captured behind the glass. So that's quite interesting. So the second use case that we'll cover would be useful for you if you or your client is into apparel or fashion. Because for this case, what we can do is pass a reference image of our product as well as our character. Seedream can handle the creation of the image where our model is wearing that product. And then we can use that image from Seedream in order to animate it into video through Wan2.5. And here, obviously, you can see that Veo3 rejected this request because we are using Zendaya in this case. So Google rejected it as per their content policy, but Wan2.5 was able to create it without any issues. And so if we preview that, this is what it looks like. Now, the third use case we tested is doing UGCs, but with well-known fictional characters. So here you can see that we tested it out by sending a reference image of the Joker along with an image of this deck that we want to promote. We basically just ask Seedream to have the Joker show that product to the camera. And interestingly, for this one, both Wan2.5 and Veo3 was actually able to generate videos for it, which is good so that we can compare the quality of these two models as well.
You know why I smile so much? It's because of this Batman card game. Now 50% off at Amazon.
You know why I smile so much? It's because of this Batman card game. Now 50% off at Amazon.
So I'd say both of those are really good in terms of the video, but if you were to hear the audio, the dialogue, as well as the voice of the Joker is just better for the Veo3 version. So I think when Veo3 works and doesn't reject your request, the videos that it generates is actually turning out to be better versus Wan2.5. And I think if we go to our fourth use case, you'll find that may be true as well, because for this one, I wanted to test it with videos featuring animated characters. So here we just sent a reference image of Tanjiro from Demon Slayer along with this Funko Pop toy. We asked Seedream to have him hold that product. And what's unique for this one is that we asked these models to have the character speak in Japanese.
このファンコポップね、大好きよし、かわいい。
So I think this requires further testing for each language. But just based on that test, it does seem that Wan2.5 is unable to generate dialogue that is not English. Meanwhile, Veo3 was actually able to do it quite well. So similar to the Joker example from earlier, I'd say when Veo3 works, it's able to produce much better quality videos versus Wan2.5. Now, outside of having characters speak dialogue as well as doing user-generated content, you can also use these models for motion graphics, let's say for mobile apps. So if, for example, you have a screenshot of what your mobile app looks like, you can just have Seedream put that in any scene. So here we just ask it to put this meditation app on an iPhone screen surrounded by clouds. And obviously both Wan2.5 and Veo3 work for that because there's no content policy that will be triggered in this case. And these are the results. Now, a couple of things to note there is that clearly for Wan2.5 and also for Veo3, the text adherence still needs a bit of improvement. But if you're just using this, say, for B-roll, then that footage is actually already usable. And then for Veo3, you may notice that there is a black bar here at the bottom. The reason why that may happen is because when we are using key AI for these generations, what they actually do to create this 9x16 Veo3 video is they call on another reframing model in order to achieve this effect. Now, Veo3 just a few days ago just launched native capability to do 9x16. So I think what key AI is doing most likely is that they are updating their Veo3 integration in order to move away from that reframing and actually use Veo3's native portrait capabilities to avoid cases like this. And of course, apart from mobile applications and SaaS products, these video models also shine when it comes to creating product ads. So for example, here, we just sent a photo where we have a picture of coffee beans in the background and then just put this product on top of that. And we ask Seedream to put the product in the center of those coffee beans. So that looks pretty good and all the text has been properly adhered to as well. And coming from that, we can animate those using these models. And interestingly, the treatment of these models with this video is quite different. Have a look. So for this case, it really depends what you're after in terms of which one you prefer. And for this one, we also passed a pretty simple prompt for it. We basically said to animate the image. And so if you're refining it for this use case, then having a more detailed prompt would be what you would want to do first. And then finally, the last use case that we tested for these models is using it for viral faceless videos. And just for context for this one, in case you haven't seen them, there's a lot of these AI-generated shorts on YouTube and TikTok that are going viral recently where they basically show supposedly live action scenes from well-known anime, and these are actually possible to be made using Wan2.5 and Seedream. And to do that, we just pass a reference image of this person cosplaying as the character, where Seedream now puts them into the scene, and Wan2.5 can animate starting from that image. And here you can see that Veo3 rejected this once again. So it seems that if you're interested in this faceless niche, Wan2.5 would be the way to go. So if we were to summarize, it does seem that Wan2.5 has its use cases where it is clearly better than Veo3, mainly because in terms of restrictions, there's almost none. It's also good that it can do 10-second video generations, which is slightly longer versus Veo3's 8 seconds. But a good thing to note is that currently it is a bit more expensive versus Veo3 Fast in key AI. So for Veo3, it's around 4 cents per second of video generated, while Wan2.5 at the moment is 6 cents per second. And the other thing to note is that from our testing, generating with Wan2.5 actually takes quite a long time to do. So it's averaging at around 6 minutes in order to generate one video, while for Veo3, it's usually much faster at 1 to 2 minutes. And then as mentioned previously, in terms of the quality, it does depend on your use case, although I think Veo3 can consistently provide better quality output for most use cases versus Wan. So there you go, 7 use cases of how to use Wan2.5 and Seedream, all automated using n8n. As mentioned in the beginning, if you want to grab this template and also this Google Sheet, which has all of the prompts that we used, you can check out the RoboNuggets community just in the link below if you're not yet part of it. There's tons more AI lessons and automation templates that we have here, and myself plus our members also regularly post paid opportunities and partnership collaborations here, if that's something that you're interested in. So check that out if that's for you, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.